concentrate on the job creators, who are Canada's small and medium-sized businesses. We'll give them a substantial tax cut. Moving that from 11 down to 9% will have an effect, a positive effect.
In the face of all this, Stephen Harper is asking Canadians to stay the course. He wants us to believe his plan to do nothing is the best we can do. Well, I don't buy it.
Thank God we didn't use a couple of months' weak data to go out and commit this country to 3 years of deficit spending and huge tax increases like the other guys would have done.
Those were some of the reactions of the three main political party leaders to the news that Canada's economy slipped into recession in the first half of this year. Each reflects a different approach on how best to handle a struggling economy. Some of the highlights: the NDP's proposals for stimulating the economy include raising the corporate tax rate, introducing a $15 an hour federal minimum wage, and rolling back the age of retirement eligibility from 67 to 65. The Liberals are pitching $60 billion in new infrastructure spending over the next decade to create new jobs and economic growth. The party also wants to shift the income tax burden by cutting rates for the middle class while hiking them for upper income earners. A Trudeau government would pay for it by running 3 straight deficits before balancing the budget in 2019. Conservative leader Stephen Harper is sticking with the status quo. His government insists the budget be balanced and plans to avoid future deficits. With low tax policies, targeted tax cuts are the best way to promote economic growth and create jobs. Time for the big picture. Bill Robson, President and CEO of the C.D. Howe Institute. Goldy Hyder is the President and CEO of Helen Knowlton Strategies. And Angella MacEwen is a senior economist with the Canadian Labour Congress. I'm going to start with you, Bill, and say, obviously every party leader will claim they've got some kind of magic fix here. From where you sit, we're obviously, whether we're in deep recession or very mild recession, whatever it is, we're not growing strongly. Did you hear a platform that speaks to you, that you say, yes, that's the route that Canada needs to go?
Well, I am going to start off with this question of the big R word and echo what should have been an unnewsworthy announcement from the C.D. Howe Institute's Business Cycle Council saying it was too early to tell. Yeah. It is too early to tell. People are reacting very strongly on the basis of some data that show certainly that the economy was wobbly in the first half of the year. But to call it a recession really raises the profile of the issue in a way that I think is a little out of proportion. We saw some weak GDP numbers, but they were very close to zero. In the normal course of revision, some of that might disappear. And for a recession of the kind that would really, mobilize policy, cause the Bank of Canada to do something with interest rates, or the federal government to change its fiscal policy, you'd want to see other things as well. You'd want to see weakness in the job. I mean, you wouldn't want to see weakness in the job market, but there'd be a lot of other things that would. But
you sound like you're talking Conservative Party playbook here. We're 2.5% below potential. We're well below what this economy could and should be running at. Is that not itself cause for concern, whether we're slightly negative or slightly positive?
I don't know for sure that we are as far below potential as that, because part of what's happened in the world, this is the bad news for the Canadian economy, is that a lot of the demand for the energy we were producing has gone away. Does that create slack in the economy, or is that a bit like shuttering a factory that's then out of work for a while? I'll make one quick point. I know you want to bring the others into this, but for the longer term, with demography changing and so on, the trend rate of growth of the economy is going to be slowing. We're going to see more of these flat patches just because of that more moderate trend. We can't panic every time we see a weak reading, or we're going to be panicking all the time.
There are, though, Goldy, and I'll bring you in on this, there are some structural problems facing the country, right? We've lost manufacturing jobs. We're obviously very reliant on a couple of key sectors. Are you hearing anything that inspires you that there's some vision about leading the country into growth, into prosperity?
Well, look, I think the state of our politics today is largely a batter who's happily just hitting foul balls and every once in a while getting in a single. And it's not a curse or a commentary on any one political party, it's a commentary on the whole system. And to your point, I know you've been arguing this and advancing this issue, Amanda, about actually having a discourse about big issues. You mentioned it on last night's Bottom Line panel. I don't think you're going to see that today, because political people are rewarded for short-term things. On that note, the short-term pressure that the government faces and a wannabe government faces is the real story is about business investment and the lack thereof. Why is that? Business likes certainty. What are we having most recently? A lot of uncertainty around the oil pricing, around the dollar, around interest rates, around political stability, tax policy, regulatory. So until we get those fundamentals right and provide clarity, I don't think we're going to see a change. This may well be the new normal for some time.
All right, Angela, I want you to weigh in. Obviously, we do have some clear policy ideas. The Liberals talking about $60 billion in infrastructure spending, the NDP raising corporate taxes, new federal minimum wage. Do these ideas add up to you to something we can get excited about?
Well, so I think that this isn't actually a short-term problem that we're facing. It is a short and shallow recession probably that we're going to have here. But this recession comes on the back of 6 years of really weak growth, right? And some of that is business investment. Some of that is we have not pivoted to exports. And some of the ideas that we are hearing, I think, are good. So taxing corporations and then putting that money to use. The NDP has also promised infrastructure on what the Federation of Canadian Municipalities has been calling for from this government. Both the Liberals and the NDP are talking about rebuilding that municipal infrastructure, rebuilding public transit. So that's a green thing and a jobs thing. So there are some big ideas being talked about here, and some ideas about how to rebuild and sort of kickstart that growth that we really haven't had since the 2008 recession.
I guess I want, Goldy, we'll get right back to you, but Bill, I want to ask you whether you think anybody could do anything. I mean, we are hearing these kind of new forecasts of just a new normal low growth. There's some suggestions Canada's economy will grow at 1.5% for several years to come. Is there anything government can do or should wisely do to create, I guess, sustain prosperity? We know we can juice it with infrastructure spending in the short term. We know you can stick stimulus and you'll get some reaction, but something that's sustainable and structural.
Well, one of the main reasons that the growth rate of the economy is slowing down over the long haul is demographic. The baby boomers are getting older. Immigration helps, but it's not enough to get the population growth going. Now, on a per person basis, that means there's more output to go around per person, so we don't necessarily feel that by way of our living standards. But I think of demography and I think, okay, immigration helps. Yep. Good education helps so that people are ready for the workforce. Not encouraging people to leave the workforce prematurely is an important thing, and that's become an issue in the campaign. Since demography is one of the main things slowing us down, you should think about the human side, the job side, the human capital side when you're thinking about some of the things that could help us do better.
Goldy, I want to ask you about some of the tax policies that we're hearing about, including, we have all this rhetoric about doing something for the middle class, and we know we want to grow the middle class and make it more prosperous. It seems to me to be very counterintuitive to say we want middle class to grow into upper middle class, that's what we're talking about, but we're going to raise the taxes on the upper middle class, which is what most of the tax plans include. So we want you to get there and then we're going to take it away from you. Seems to me to be a little counterintuitive.
Yeah, hardly motivating, is it? Look, I think that whole notion of the middle class, I've said it before, is sort of the new soccer mom. Everybody's trying to cater to this so-called middle class, which most of us think we belong to, and yet very few of us actually do. Look, let's focus on the big issue here on the economy. Friday is going to be a very important day for the government in particular. The job numbers come out for August. That's an early indicator. There's more data coming over the next little week here in terms of interest rate announcement, the Bank of Canada. We're going to have a debate with the federal leaders. We've got the GDP numbers coming out at the end of the month for July. There will be a lot more information between now and October 19th for political parties to frame the ballot question, which is what they're trying to do here, and for the voter to decide, what do I want here? Is it time for a change? Do I need to take a risk? Do I agree with any of these other ideas? The boldest idea I've heard out there, to give credit where credit due, is Mr. Trudeau coming out with the idea of running deficits. Irrespective of what I think about it, I'll give him marks for at least saying something completely different than what the other guys have been saying.
Points for originality. Angela, you get 10 seconds. Do you think the voters are being galvanized by anything that we're hearing so far?
I think it's early on, and I think they're right. There's lots of data coming. I think what the three parties need to be talking about is how to invest in Canadians, how to ensure that that prosperity is fairly shared, and how to make sure that there's that security, that sense of that we're going to be okay in the future.
All right, that's the big picture. Thanks to you all, Bill, Goldie, Angela.